Hi, Reconsider. Welcome back. Alternative knowledge, independent views. So as a continuation of my series of discussions summarising some of my experiences during Contact in the Desert 2017, one of the main highlights has really solidified my views and personal resolve that yes, ETs do exist, we are definitely not alone, and that we the people need to rise up and take charge of our own destiny. If you think newspapers, television, networks or even politicians are going to stand up above the noise and say that we are not alone in the universe, then mate, you're in La La Land. Humans are intrinsically linked to the universe and other ET races. Our technological and cultural development has been assisted by other beings from other planets for millennia. So what can you do about it? How can you seek proof for yourself and others? I have never had personal confirmation. My own contact experience, my beliefs and interests in this subject have previously been completely based on other people's stories. From films I've watched, books I've read, I wanted my own evidence that there is definitely something in all of this. For a long time now, the wrong people of humanity are being used to represent us all. Powered by greed, a thirst for control, it's up to people with a good heart and good intent to stand up and really make an effort and reach out to other civilizations. As I mentioned in the previous films, my personal entry point into this community and the start of my journey into discovering all this suppressed hidden knowledge was through the work of Dr. Stephen Greer. So it was with much excitement to finally have the opportunity to be able to attend one of his CE5 contact workshop. But as it turns out, there are other ways to potentially make contact with ETs. This revealed itself during Contact in the Desert, as I was exposed to a couple of other individuals who had their own protocols. Their approach and techniques were different. It was amazing to see and experience other ways. And all of them seemed to have powerful results. In this particular film, I'll be covering firstly Dr. Greer's technique, then Melinda Leslie, and finally look briefly at James Gilliland. So firstly, the CE5 protocols were designed by Dr. Stephen Greer, who is most well known for his disclosure project in 2001. CE5 stands for Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. So the third kind is a UFO encounter with an ET entity. The fourth kind is when a human is abducted by a UFO or its occupants. So lastly, the fifth kind is defined as human-initiated contact towards ET and UFOs. So then, the Dr. Greer experience, Dr. Stephen Greer. I paid extra for this course. It was quite a lot more than most other workshops, but an amazing experience. Initially the event was going to happen at the amphitheatre, which is the largest event space in the Contact of the Desert. It's an outside space. But the unfortunate problem they had was that there were huge UV screens that they had in place as a roof, obviously to protect you against the really harsh sun during the daytime. But in the evenings that made it quite difficult to have like a proper contact experience. So very last minute they moved the whole event to an area called Orion's Lookout, which is the same area that we used for Melinda Leslie's contact experiences. And then initially we had to give them some time, so apparently they were doing some kind of clearing. And I don't know what that means, whether that involved using sound or some kind of meditation to kind of cleanse the area sort of spiritually maybe. So we had to wait around for that a little bit, but then we sort of returned back to the area. And I didn't quite realise how many people had turned up. There was about 400 people. And I was concerned that, how would we fit 400 people within this quite small area, but we managed it. Again, not ideal because obviously there was a lot of man-made stuff around. So like as Dr. Greer said, that it's best really to be in complete sort of nature for it to be, a better experience. But he did his usual introduction. I mean, I'd seen a lot of his videos before, so it's kind of information I'd heard before. There was some other new information I'd never heard, which is really interesting. But yeah, he basically just like a bio of his life, and then talked about the CE5 protocols, which are pretty simple. You don't really need a huge amount of kit to do it. They had other things like magnetometers and also I think thunderstorm, lightning kind of detectors, which apparently sometimes ETs use to sort of signal. But you don't necessarily need that, but that obviously kind of aids the whole contact experience if they're able to communicate to these other devices. But basically he was explaining that you can sort of download the Contact CE5 app, and I mean, I've got it on my iPhone here. You can get it for Android as well. I've been in the Android version, but it's not as good. It's a bit more clunkier, and this is a little bit more what's the word? There's a bit more finesse in this app in comparison to the Android version. But essentially, when you start your contact experience, you've got a group of people. I mean, I've tried to do it on my own, like numerous occasions, and it's never been that successful. So that tells me that you really need to be sort of minimum 2-3 people for it to be successful, because obviously the power of meditation, the more people you have, the greater that effect is going to be. So essentially, initially what you got to do on the app, there's meditation, group meditations you can listen to, but then also there's various tones, and this is one tone. This is the kind of the main tone that he uses, if you can hear that. And the idea is that you play that sort of for around 5-10 minutes, and you're using a walkie-talkie to then, I mean, you basically masking tape or electrical tape at the button, which then projects from the walkie-talkie to the crop signals, and obviously then that is then projected out into space using your walkie-talkie. So like I said, you do that for 5-10 minutes, and that kind of helps ETs locate where you are. And the next stage of the process, again, you can use the phone. It has various guided meditations you can listen to, and they're basically guided meditations by Stephen Greer, and helps you center yourself and come into a really deep, relaxed state. And then from there, it's about going through a process of remote viewing. So essentially, you're kind of using your astral body to sort of imagine yourself rising from your seat where you're sat, and then going higher and higher in the air, and actually sort of visualizing what that area would look like as you get higher and higher up to the point where you're reaching sort of outer space above the earth, and then you keep going through into deep space. And the whole idea is, if you sort of come across an ET entity or a craft, then you're signaling to it and going, hey, I've got good intent, I'm coming with love, I want to connect with you, please come and visit. And so then you're remote viewing backwards, so you're going back into the spiral arm of the Milky Way, and then you're sort of zooming in back to the solar system, past Mars, etc., back to Earth, and then floating back down to the country you're in, and then going even further, just to signal to the ET exactly where your location is. And you do that multiple times during this sort of guided meditation. And again, in the combination with the tones and with the combination of the remote viewing, the idea is that hopefully you will then be inviting some form of contact experience, whether with a craft or whether an ET actually near to you on the ground. Now, and then once you've gone through that process, the whole idea is then, again, looking at the sky. You can download apps on your phone. There's one called Heavens Above, and that basically helps you to decipher what's a satellite and what isn't a satellite, because it essentially tells you the pathways of the satellites that are in the sky that are known. So then you can try and decipher, okay, that is definitely a satellite because it's shown on my app here. And then ones, if you're unsure whether they're not an actual satellite, then obviously you can signal with it with a laser pen. His technique's slightly different, whereas Melinda Leslie, she's firing the laser pen directly into the craft. And Stephen Greer's technique seems to be about signaling around it. He's a lot more careful, because that's another thing I should have mentioned. You've got to be really careful what you signal with, because when you see a plane in the sky, it's pretty obvious, because loads of the usual green, red flashing and white lights. See, and it obviously sort of floats at a certain speed, and so you can tell immediately. But if you shine a laser pen into a plane, it's really dangerous, obviously, because you can blind pilots. So you've got to be completely sure that you're signaling not into a plane. So that is really, really important, because you can get into a lot of trouble, and then plus you can cause harm to the pilot as well. So Melinda Leslie, I kind of came across her kind of contact technique quite by accident. I saw on the schedule for Contacts in the Desert that she was pretty much doing a contact event every single evening, from an area called Orion's Lookout, and you basically could pay $5 because they had night vision scopes there as well, so you could basically look into the night sky, and it will give you more of a definition between what is a satellite and what isn't a satellite. And then her technique was pretty simple in terms of there was no real meditation involved. It was essentially just using like laser pens like this, and then when you did see a kind of moving object, you were signaling to it with the laser pen, and you were shining it directly at the object. And her technique was to sort of give it 3 short bursts of the laser pen, and then leave it for 5 seconds, and then so essentially it's like a Morse code, dash dash dash, and then leave, dash dash dash, and keep repeating that technique. And according to her, that sort of if it is like a UFO or an extraterrestrial, then it basically shows to them that it's like a message from an intelligent being, and that they potentially could signal back. So yeah, and it was really successful, and actually that was my first ever contact experience, really, because there was like what we thought was a satellite, but as he kept signaling to it, the thing flashed back, and it was incredible, an amazing moment. I was so happy to have that kind of experience. And then throughout the evening there were other events as well, where an object powered up with light, so it gradually grew brighter and brighter and brighter. And she was also saying that if it's a satellite, they tend to sort of keep a particular rhythm, a particular speed, and then if it is a satellite, it should then follow all the way down to the horizon, then disappear. If it potentially is an ET vehicle or something else, then sometimes that object can dematerialize. So it will be materialized for a second, and then it might float away. Or obviously if it's signaled back to you through flashing, or obviously glowing brighter and brighter, then obviously that indicates that it was an ET craft. And then also she was saying that some of the lights that move that have an orange hue, that apparently indicates towards an ET craft. Apparently a scientist told her that there's like a particular yellow hue that comes through the process of materializing or dematerializing, that kind of gives it that yellowish color, which obviously then indicates that it is also an ET craft. So yeah, that was her technique, and it was pretty simple. Just literally signal the laser pen, and also she was saying have good intent. So as you're signaling, really want it, you have to want it to signal back, and that intent helps the whole process. And she was there, also had the night vision scopes, which I'd never used before, and they are quite amazing, but seriously a lot of money. It's like $4,000 to $5,000 to buy these scopes, and they're the kind of the latest generation of night vision scopes. But to be fair, the contact experiences we had, I didn't use a night vision scope. So yeah, just really simple way of doing it. I've no idea whether it's best to be in a group or whether you can do it on your own. I assume it's better with a group because you've got more of a power of intent to want to communicate. So yeah, that was my experience with Melinda Leslie. So another gentleman I saw at the Contact in the Desert, who I'd never actually heard of before, was called James Gilliland. I hope I said that right. But essentially he's quite well known, but yeah, again, I unfortunately never heard of him, which is quite embarrassing. But he has a ranch somewhere, and he's got a mountain behind him, and he has a lot of contact experiences, again because his ranch is like a spiritual healing centre. And he has a lot of contact experiences there due to the fact that the position of the ranch is in a vortex. And he's very into sort of meditation and stuff, and he purely uses meditation to make contact with various ET races. And his thing is that essentially you can kind of connect with these races purely through meditation and concentrating on what they look like. So again, his sort of way is very different and doesn't use any kind of electrical implements like walkie-talkies and laser pens and all the rest of it. So yeah, very simple, very spiritual, very powerful. But yeah, he was showing a lot of video evidence of some of the contact experiences he's had at his ranch, and they do look amazing. And apparently he has like conferences every kind of year, and literally every day there's some kind of flyover, there's some kind of contact experience. I mean, he's even had people like Fox News kind of visit his ranch and then confirm some of the objects in the sky as well. So yeah, really powerful. I need to read up on him. So yeah, that's another sort of slightly different way of sort of having contact experiences. Okay, great. So I just thought I'd share those various options with you. Yeah, I think it's up to us all really to sort of try and make contact with these beings in a positive way, because obviously a lot of the contact experiences they have with humans is really negative. So I think it's a really good counterpoint to all of that negative energy and negative action. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me. Reconsider. Bye bye.